Why is the UK turf island? Is that actually true? Is it J.K. Rowling effect? Or what's going on?
I think there's a lot of bits to it, and certainly J.K. Rowling's a huge part of it. I mean, size matters. I don't know if your wife says that too.
My mind's going at a million miles an hour. What's an appropriate joke I can make? I can't think of one.
So, I mean, the UK is big enough that there's sort of, a critical mass. So I compare it very much to Ireland, where I'm from, and the women there who are trying to fight much worse laws and much worse infiltration of American NGOs and so on. There's just not enough of them to do anything. But then if you look at the US, it's so big that it's very hard for women to organise and get together. And so things end up being at the state level. So you're back to kind of the small problem. And also for a country of this size, the UK is very centralised. So, okay, there's stuff in Holyrood that's mad. But basically most things are Westminster and Holyrood, or at the very worst, the 4 nations. But in the States, you've got all the states. And the same actually in Australia and Canada. It's much more, and even Germany. You've got the state level. So you've just got to have every fight a load of times. It's like fighting Hydra. As in the multi-headed one, not the one from the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh, I didn't know that one. I didn't know there was a Hydra in the Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
Do you watch those?
Yes, of course.
I never watched them. I'm a bit more highbrow
What
than
sort
you.
of man are you?
I'm a bit more highbrow. No, you sent me your questions for Richard Dawkins as well, just to help, because I was in such a stress, and they were really helpful. But I was like, bloody hell, some of these are so highbrow for me.
Yeah, I do love evolutionary biology, and I was a genuine reader of Richard Dawkins since I was a teenager. Whereas you're just a blow-in Johnny-come-lately culture warrior.
I'm trying to think what I am. I'm just bloke. Just bloke.
You're just have microphone will travel. That's the definition, isn't it?
I'm Louis Theroux. I'll be Louis Theroux.
Well, that'd be nice.
Yeah, it's a quote from Peep Show. Mark, do you ever watch that?
Yeah.
And Mark's, whenever it's like horrible things are happening around him, and he's like, oh God, and he's just going, I'm Louis Theroux. He's just pretending he's not
detached. Yeah. So
yeah,
on the Turf Island thing, so the size really mattered thing.
Yeah.
And then there were just some accidents of timing. So, for example, this bullshit was really coming in big time from the US everywhere else around the time Brexit happened. And so there was this sort of critical 2 or 3 years where the entire British state, whatever you think about Brexit, was just completely focused on that. And I think without Brexit, we would have got gender self-ID passed in 2018.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, Theresa May was going to do it. Theresa May was for it when she was Prime Minister. They had got a bill going. They were doing the consultation and everything. And just the distraction meant that any good civil servants were working on something Brexit related, and the people who were given this were probably the fifth raters. So it kind of lagged, and women were able to just about get organised, and they could see what had happened in the US. And we pulled that back as it was going out the door, like by just the tips of the fingernails. And then the longer that people look at this, the more they know it's awful.
Do we not have self-ID then? Here?
No, we don't have self-ID here.
That's good.
Yeah, we do. We do in practice in a lot of places, but at least in law we don't. And I mean, there's a big court case next week, Supreme Court, looking at the issues. I mean, there's so much news at the moment. There's so much happening. Yeah, so for Women Scotland, who are this grassroots group of women in Scotland, challenged a law that Scotland passed some years ago, and it sounds like it's on the most technical thing you could imagine. It's on quotas for public boards. One of the things that's allowed in equality law is to have quotas for underrepresented groups. And it was a target of 50% women on the boards of public bodies in Scotland, but they said a woman was anyone who identified as a woman. But you can't just discriminate on any grounds you like. That's, it's not lawful. And so they went to court and they won. And the Scottish government was told that people who identify as women are not a group that you can do this sort of thing for. Because it's a mixed sex group. It's leaving out women who don't identify as women, and it's including men who do identify as women. So then the Scottish government came back with women, meaning people who have gender recognition certificates or birth certs. And for Women Scotland challenged them again. They've lost twice, and now it's at the Supreme Court next week. And the Supreme Court is finally going to look at the question of, when we talk about sex discrimination, do we mean the piece of paper or do we mean the bodies?
It's so bizarre to go with the piece of paper.
It's so bizarre. But I mean, there are legal arguments for doing it. But the Supreme Court are the smartest judges in the country. And I hope they can look at things like the Leche League. If you are saying that men can't come into a place, you are committing sex discrimination. That's by definition. But loads of sex discrimination is lawful because you can't run single-sex things without doing sex discrimination. So would it make a difference to you if the man who wants to chest feed his baby has a piece of paper saying he's a woman? Obviously not. He's the same.
Yeah.
All the reasons you would keep him out are the same as if you would keep out a man who doesn't have a piece of paper. Conversely, if a woman has a piece of paper saying she's a man, is she unsuitable to come in? Obviously not. If she hasn't had her breast cut off and she isn't taking testosterone, then brilliant, breastfeed away.
So in both cases, the paper is obviously irrelevant.
Yeah, I can't think of a situation in the real world where where paper is irrelevant. There are some administrative things. So if you get the piece of paper and you get married, it'll say your sex is the piece of paper sex. And pensions, the pension system takes your piece of paper sex. Makes no difference anymore because we've equalised the pension age. But anyway, when it came in, we hadn't. So those administrative things are one thing. Like, fine, if the state wants to mess around with pieces of paper, that's one thing. But human beings in spaces where we need to see whether people around us are male or female. Searching. Police officers searching people. Mm-hmm. The rules are based on sex. You can't do an intimate search if you're not the same sex as the detainee. Would a piece of paper make a difference?
No. We shouldn't have the pieces of paper, though. That just confuses things.
Yes, that's the second step. We do have the pieces of paper now.
Get rid of them.
Yeah, fine. Tell me the step-by-step way of getting there. Right now, I'm talking about, can a man who has a piece of paper carry out an intimate search on a woman if he's a police officer and she's a detainee? I mean, I regard that as an Article 3 violation. For those who don't know, Article 3 is the one that's the prohibition on torture, inhuman or degrading treatment.
Wow. Yeah.
And it does include being forced to undress in front of a member of the opposite sex. That's been decided at the European Court of Human Rights.
This is so Kafkaesque. I know everyone overuses the word, but it's just the bureaucracy of the paper.
Oh, it is totally Kafkaesque. And it's even worse than just the piece of paper. This piece of paper is a secret piece of paper that you can't ask about. And if you find out about it in doing your job and you pass that information on, it's a criminal offence.